Arizona's housing story has quietly taken a turn that most people didn't see coming. For the first time ever, the state's cost of living has risen above the national average, and behind that shift lies a warning every home buyer needs to hear. This isn't rumor or speculation. It comes straight from the new State of Housing in Arizona report produced by ASU's Morrison Institute and the ARCHES Research Group. If you live here, plan to move here, or dream of owning property in this state, this information could shape every financial decision you make next. For decades, Arizona carried the reputation of being an affordable haven. Warm climate, lower taxes, cheaper homes, and room to grow. That image is fading. The data shows that in 2023, Arizona's cost of living officially rose to 1.1% above the national average. And the single biggest factor behind that jump wasn't food, gas, or entertainment. It was housing. Rents and utilities together exceeded the national average by 8.6%. The average Arizonan is now paying more for a place to live than most Americans. And during that same year, home purchases across the state fell by 22%. Think about what that means. Fewer people are buying because fewer can afford to. Meanwhile, homelessness numbers reveal a heartbreaking reality. For the second straight year, more than 14,000 people in Arizona have no place to live. Families with children make up a growing share of that number, rising by 15%. That's not a statistic to ignore. It's the symptom of a housing system that's out of balance. The director of research at the Morrison Institute said something that every renter and homeowner should remember. Many people experiencing homelessness actually have jobs. They're not lazy. They're not jobless. They simply cannot keep up with rent increases that keep climbing while paychecks don't. Let's put this into perspective. Back in 2010, a typical home in Arizona cost about 2.8 times the median homeowner income. That's considered manageable. But by 2023, that ratio had risen to 4.6 times. In simple terms, homes now cost almost twice as much compared to what people earn. And it's not just buyers. Renters have been hit even harder. Between 2019 and 2024, average rent in Arizona jumped 23%. But household incomes during that same period rose only 4% after adjusting for inflation. Imagine your rent going up 5 times faster than your income. That's the reality thousands of Arizonans are living with right now. Housing costs are the main engine behind the rising cost of living. They've pushed Arizona from being one of the most affordable states to a state where surviving feels like strategy. People move here thinking they're escaping expensive cities like Los Angeles or Seattle, but now they arrive to find the same pressures: bidding wars, rent hikes, and limited supply. Even though new home construction has increased, demand keeps outpacing growth. Developers are building, but they can't build fast enough. Eviction filings have hit record highs. Families that once dreamed of owning are now struggling just to stay in their apartments. And even with paychecks, many are forced into temporary shelters or cars. If you step back and look at the bigger picture, you'll see that Arizona's housing crisis isn't just a story about homes. It's a story about economic mobility. When people spend too much on housing, they spend less on education, healthcare, and savings. The economy slows, families become fragile, and generational wealth disappears before it can begin. But understanding this crisis gives you power. It helps you make smart decisions in a chaotic market. Because while most people panic when they hear cost of living rising, investors and informed buyers see signals. Let's break those signals down. First, this change tells us that Arizona's housing market has matured. The state is no longer the cheap alternative to California. It's becoming a strong independent market of its own. That means higher entry costs, yes, but also higher long-term value. If you buy strategically, you're not just purchasing a home. You're securing a growing asset in a state where demand continues to climb. Second, while average housing costs are rising, not all areas rise equally. Some cities, especially smaller suburban regions around Phoenix and Tucson, are still underpriced compared to their economic potential. These zones could become the next affordability corridors where buyers today will own the most valuable properties tomorrow. Third, government response is coming. Local and state leaders already recognize that housing is now Arizona's #1 public concern. The Morrison Institute report notes that both local and state governments are exploring creative solutions. adjusting zoning rules, promoting multi-unit construction, offering incentives for affordable development. When governments intervene, the window for entry often opens briefly before the next wave of growth. Smart buyers watch for those policy shifts and move quickly when they happen. Fourth, there's migration. During the pandemic, Arizona became a magnet for remote workers fleeing high-cost states. That surge pushed housing demand up faster than anyone expected. The latest report shows that in 2023, the share of home sales to out-of-state buyers dropped back to pre-pandemic levels. That's actually an opportunity. As external demand cools slightly, locals have a short window to step in before the next cycle of national investors drives prices higher again. Fifth, affordability gaps create new types of investment. For example, while single-family homes are stretching budgets, small multi-unit properties, duplexes, triplexes, and accessory dwelling units are gaining ground. These allow homeowners to live in one section and rent the other, offsetting costs. If you're strategic, this model can turn the affordability crisis into a long-term income engine. Now, let's look deeper into what these numbers really mean for ordinary buyers. When rents and mortgages rise faster than wages, it doesn't just change what you can afford. It changes how neighborhoods evolve. Areas that were once entry-level communities become mid-tier markets. Older renters are pushed out, younger professionals move in, and the city reshapes itself. This is exactly what we're watching in real time across Maricopa and Pima counties. The difference between owning now and waiting another year could be the difference between a sustainable future and a life stuck in rising rent. You see, housing inflation compounds like interest. Every year prices rise, the next entry point gets harder. Waiting for the perfect moment rarely works because inflation in this sector doesn't reverse easily. Once landlords know the market can handle higher rents, those prices rarely go back down. So if you're planning to buy, you must focus less on chasing the lowest price and more on identifying sustainable value. That means looking for areas with job growth, infrastructure expansion, or upcoming transit developments, because those factors stabilize property value even when markets tighten. It also means being realistic about hidden costs. Maintenance, utilities, insurance, and taxes are all rising faster than before. Recent data shows that the average Arizona homeowner now spends over $21,000 a year just on maintenance and housing-related expenses. Those who don't plan for that buffer end up financially strained even after buying what they thought was an affordable home. The other side of this story is emotional. Many Arizonans feel betrayed. They came to this state believing in the promise of affordable living, and now they're facing a market that feels hostile. But perspective matters. Every major state in America has faced this phase. California in the 70s, Texas in the early 2000s, and now Arizona. The pattern repeats. Growth brings cost, cost brings adjustment, and adjustment brings opportunity for those who study the data. This isn't the time to panic. It's the time to plan. If you want to thrive in this new Arizona, you need to start acting like a strategist, not just a buyer. Start by knowing your market better than your realtor. Study rent trends, city planning updates, and infrastructure projects. Watch where new roads or business parks are being built. Those areas almost always experience appreciation within 2 to 5 years. Then, think of housing as an investment in time. You're not just buying walls and roofs, you're buying years of stability. The earlier you lock that stability, the better you protect yourself from future inflation. And don't overlook collective effort. The Morrison Institute report makes it clear. Arizona's prosperity depends on solving its housing problem together, through smarter policy, better planning, and informed citizens who push for fairness and growth. By understanding the real forces shaping the market, you become part of that solution. You stop guessing and start preparing. You make decisions based on evidence, not emotion. And you build wealth when others hesitate. So here's the truth. Plain and simple. Arizona's housing costs are higher than they've ever been. The cost of living has crossed above the national average. But inside that challenge lies an opportunity for those who think ahead. Because every market correction, every affordability crisis, eventually produces a new wave of smart investors and resilient homeowners. The difference between being priced out and being prepared starts with understanding what's really happening now. The report's conclusion says it best. Meeting the challenges of the current housing market is essential for supporting economic mobility and health among Arizona's communities. That's your cue. This is your time to look beyond the fear and focus on the facts. Housing costs are climbing. But so is the potential for those who plan carefully, invest wisely, and act decisively. So, as the cost of living rises and the market shifts, remember this: Arizona's story isn't ending, it's evolving. The question is, will you adapt with it, or wait until it's too late? Because the next chapter of this housing story will be written by those who understand the data and have the courage to make the right move when everyone else is standing still.